My name is Marcia Robinson, and we are recording an oral history with Tracy L. Davis as part of the Sweet MUMories Oral History Project. This project marks the 50th anniversary of the Miami University Middletown, Ohio campus. This interview is taking place on May 5, 2017, at the Gardner-Harvey Library. Ms. Davis, do I have your consent to proceed with this interview?
Yes.
Thank you. Can you tell us how you came to be part of the Miami Middletown community?
I came to Miami Middletown in 2001. I had just moved from Mankato, Minnesota. And they had a new position that was posted. It was a coordinator for student success and co-curricular programs. And it was a new position that had not existed before. The position was designed to revamp the EDL 110 class, which is now our University 101 class. But I'm sorry.
What is EDL?
EDL was Educational Leadership 110, which was the student success course for first-year students. And the other part of that was a co-curricular piece where we were supposed to be designing programmatic efforts for faculty. That was totally exciting, and I love that part of it. And so I did that for 7 years while I was here. And there were some ebbs and flows in that, in the sense that there were times when the enrollment for those EDL 110 classes was really, really high. And then there were other times that it kind of just slacked off. But again, it has to do with, how much people know about the course and how excited they made it seem to the students so that the students would be excited about it. So once we really got that going, there was some good and bads about that, but.
So what were some of the topics that needed to be covered for our students? We are an open access campus.
Mm-hmm. We covered things about basic survival at the university. So what are the resources that you need? Who are the key people that you need to be in touch with in order to be successful? And then we covered things like what kind of responsibility are you showing for your education? How do you monitor and manage your time so that you can be successful? Because a lot of our students work, a lot of our students have families in addition to going to school. And so how do you negotiate that and still be able to be successful in the classroom? We talked a little bit about, career development. How do you translate what you're learning in the classroom into a potential career? How do you connect with people? How do you interact with your faculty members? How do you interact with the faculty and staff on campus? So it was a variety of things that we would cover in the classroom. We had, one year we did a nursing learning community. One year we did a learning community for athletes. We did a Black Issues in Higher Education course. And that again had to do with learning more about Black history, about African Americans in the community, and that was really the impetus for the Mississippi trip.
Tell us about this Mississippi trip.
Well, we took a group of students to Canton, Mississippi. It was in conjunction with our artist and lecturer. She was, okay, let me see if I can get her title right. Artist, lecturer in residence, and her name was Flonzie Brown Wright. And she was from Mississippi, and she was the co-teacher for this Black Issues in Higher Education class. And so she was giving us so much history about Mississippi because, of course, she was there in the height of the civil rights era, the Medgar Evers and John Meredith. In fact, she knows all of those people. And she introduced us to those people when we went to Mississippi. And so she was able to bring that into the discussion, and we decided, hey, we should make this a trip. And so we raised funds for it. The Students and Faces, which is the faces and cultures of every student. It's the student organization on campus. And so we raised money, we raised funds, and we went. And it was probably one of the best trips socially, culturally, and I'm even going to say emotionally, that I've ever been on, because the stories that those people told, it was like they were living in that moment. When we had a chance to talk to James Meredith, I mean, he still is a very passionate man about that time in history. And when we would talk about him, and you could just see the emotion in his face when he talked about, you know, when he was on his way to school and how he was treated and really how some of that hasn't really changed. And that was powerful. We stood in the driveway of where Medgar Evers was killed. And there wasn't a dry eye on that concrete because we were standing in the spot where he was shot. And the woman I can't remember what her name was, but she was telling the story about, you know, what had happened. And we were just confounded and honored to be in that place, in that space at that time. So it was a truly powerful trip. And I mean, it allowed us to, you know, talk honestly about, you know, what our condition was. And so this was back in 2008, 9, no, wasn't that 2005 or 6? And so it really allowed for honest conversation about diversity to take place in a safe space, of course, because everybody there was really on one accord. Who are we as Black people in society? Who are we as Black people at the university? Who are we as Black students? And what is our charge in this place, in this space right now? And so the conversations and how we grew as colleagues, as friends, as, you know, mentors and mentees, it was a really powerful trip.
How many people went on this trip, and can you describe the students who were involved?
Sure.
Without naming them.
It was myself, Flonzie Brown Wright, Dr. Jim Yours, and there were about 10 or 15 students from FACES and other student organizations that went on the trip, and we had another outside chaperone that came with us. So the total was probably about 20 of us.
How did you travel?
On the bus. On a bus. I mean, it was nice. I mean, and we stopped along the way, and we stopped in Alabama. We stopped where Martin Luther King was assassinated. And so we stopped at the Civil Rights Museum along the way to our destination in Canton.
All right. What was the ethnic makeup of the students who went on this trip? Were they all African American?
They were all African American. And they were all women. We didn't have any men that went with us.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and not for lack of not wanting them to. I just don't know what the level of interest was for African American men or men, period, for that trip. Okay. It was guided by women. It wasn't for women. I mean, we talked to men and women of the civil rights movement during that trip. But I just don't know why they didn't want to come.
Okay.
We're a great group.
Let's talk about some of the student organizations, the other ones that you've been involved with. What have you seen with student organizations in the 15 years you've been here?
So when I came here in 2001, there was a lot of student activity going on. So you had the men and women's basketball teams, you had the baseball teams. And FACES, which I told you earlier was Faces and Cultures of Every Student, they were around, but they weren't extremely active. And so I came and I became their advisor. And actually I was their advisor and so was Darius Pryor, so we kind of like tag teamed on that. But there was something about, I don't know, the energy that both Darius and I brought to that group that really allowed them to flourish. They wanted to do more. They wanted to be seen on campus. They wanted to hold events. They wanted to go places and travel places. And so we did a trip to Cleveland one year with that group, and it was to tour the different museums that they have in the Cleveland area. We visited the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and that was a really good trip too. We did, I was the advisor for the dance team. The dance team didn't exist before I came. I think they had cheerleaders, but it wasn't a dance team. And so when I got here, I guess they were just waiting for someone to come. And I had done this at a previous university. And so they came and they were like, can you be our advisor? And so I did. And again, just, I guess because it was support, I was supportive and interested in what they had to do, they just took off. And they had a wonderful group. And they were around for about 5 or 6 years. Until I left in 2008. I think the last year that they were around was probably 2006 or 7. Now, I have not heard whether or not they're still doing anything, but
You've mentioned a couple of names, and I'd like to know who these people are. Who is Jim Ewers?
Dr. Ewers was the Vice President of Student Affairs at Middletown. Well, he was there prior to me coming here, but he left in 2005 or 6 maybe. And he also was an author. He also was a huge supporter of the African American students and diversity on this campus. He was a very powerful orator. His favorite saying was, "You got to walk the talk." Keep hope alive. Those were his 2 favorite quotes. But he was really supportive, and he really, really believed in diversity, and he really believed in supporting students of color. And that was the one thing that I really appreciated about being able to work with him.
You also mentioned Darius Pryor.
Darius Pryor was the assistant director for admissions, but also for multicultural affairs. So he had a dual role. He was supposed to work with recruiting students of color and also responsible for multicultural programming, both of which he was fantastic at. During the time that he was here, he was able to increase the enrollment of African American students on this campus. Because he is from the Middletown community, of course, he has really strong ties in the community. He has strong ties with the Middletown High School, so he was able to engage Middletown High School. He's an awesome mentor, and so, he was very supportive of the students who were here in the community as well. He was very much, he reminds me a lot of Dr. Ewers because of the energy that he brought to the campus. And, you could see Darius coming down the hallway and you always could get a smile out of him. And so and I really appreciated that about him.
You talk about students walking down the hallway. I understand you are also a student.
I am a student. I have currently decided to go back for my doctorate, my EDD. Doctorate in Educational Leadership. I am this summer will mark my first full year. And it is by far probably one of the most daunting tasks I've ever taken on. Now I understand, when I talk to students about balancing their life and their careers in school, how important that is. And I thought, by being able to teach students how to do that I could do it, but it's not the same when you're living it.
So
it's not the same.
So tell us, what are some of the challenges of being a non-traditional student?
I have 3 kids, all under the age of, at this point, 8. And so it's challenging being able to put in the work that you need to in order to make sure all of your assignments are done, that the reading is done, that you're understanding what it is you're supposed to be learning, on top of being a mom, being there for your kids, being able to, make sure you're cooking their meals that they got to get from point A to point B. I have a household to take care of. There's cleaning, there's laundry, there's cooking, there's all these things that you have to do on top of, I have, 40 pages of reading and 10 papers and all these other things. And so it's hugely important that you just, and for me, I have the support network to do it. But that doesn't make it any easier, because you want to be there for your family. I want to be there for my family. And even though I know that, my husband, he is fantastic, he's hands-on, and he gives me the time and the space to do what I want, that doesn't translate for a 6-year-old and 5-year-old. They want, where's mommy? And so it's really hard for me to balance that. I want to do it because I feel like that this is a next step for me. But it's challenging. And as long as, they're okay with it, I'm okay with it.
Over the course of the 50 years of this campus history, there's been a change in the workplace. 50 years ago, it was possible to have a career with a high school diploma. That's no longer the case. Do you hear conversations from students about what the opportunity for education means to them now?
And you're completely right when you talk about the workplace has changed. It used to be that you could go, you could have a high school diploma, you go in, they would train you to do what they wanted you to do, and you could work that job. Things change so fast now. Technology has made it to the point where you can go in knowing A, but tomorrow you're going to need to know B. And so the education that we're trying to supply our students with is that ability to be flexible, that ability to be able to go into a workplace, assess it, and be able to negotiate that place in that space. Critical thinking is going to be key. Communication is going to be key. Those are the skills that I think our students, I think they're challenged with those skills to be able to do those things. But I'm excited about the new bachelor degrees that we have because they are liberal education based. They're very broad. It gives the students opportunities to practice those skills, to communicate, to work in groups, to think critically. And so I am encouraged that we're moving in the right direction with the degrees that we have at the regionals now.
So you talk about our non-traditional students and the changing workplace. Can you tell us how our faculty help our students through that?
The one thing that I appreciate about our campus in general, because it's open enrollment, we understand that the lives of our students are very different from, say, a residential student or a typical straight out of high school student. So we do have that population, but the majority of our population, again, are full-time workers, their parents, in addition to going to school. And I think our faculty understand and respect that. So, I think they're really flexible with our students in the sense that, they are willing to give them leeway when it comes to, completing assignments. They understand that, hey, if I have to have my kid sitting over here in the corner while we where we're doing class, they're open to that. I don't think it's anything that's common. I think that they understand the needs of the non-traditional students. I had one student whose son had special needs. And the one thing that she really appreciated about being a student here is that she could bring him here, and the faculty and the staff understood what was going on with him, and they treated him just like part of the Miami family. And so that, to me, that goes to show that they're not only open to, supporting non-traditional students, but they're supporting the whole student inside and outside of the classroom.
Speaking of classrooms, we added a whole nother campus with classroom space and to help our community, and that would be the Voice of America Learning Center. We don't have many stories about that campus. Can you tell us about it?
So the Voice of America, we kind of lovingly call it Switzerland, because it's all things to all campuses. We have graduate level classes. We have undergraduate classes. We have Corporate Community Institute. We do the Institute for Learning and Retirement. We rent the space out for meetings and conferences and things of that nature. So we're in the middle of everything. We're right in the middle of the I-75 corridor, which is growing tremendously. The one great thing I love about Voice of America is that it is so convenient. So we have students who are not only coming from Middletown and Hamilton, but we have students that are coming from Oxford. We have faculty and staff who, travel from Oxford to Middletown to use that space because it is such a beautiful space, by the way. And it is it's probably the unspoken gem of Miami, because it does allow for students to come and take graduate level courses, as well as undergraduate classes toward a major at the regionals, as well as Oxford.
What attracted you to work at the VOA?
So the discussion about VOA has been going on since I came to Miami, and I came in 2001. And I remember hearing stories about, this new location that they were going to build. It was going to be in Westchester, but it never really came to fruition. So I kind of forgot about it. And then when they broke ground on it, I went to Rod, because Rod was one of the key people in that whole establishment of the VOA. So I went to him and I said, hey, if you ever need a student services person down at the VOA, contact me, I'm your girl. And so that was the running joke for a while. And then when they decided that they were gonna, actually staff it that way, he said, yeah, let's talk. And so I ended up at the VOA, and I love it. So I'm all things student services related at the VOA. So academic advising, records and registration, admissions, career counseling, all those things that you would get in a separate office at Middletown or Hamilton. I do all those things. I do a lot of referring.
Some of the stories we've had involve the ability of women to advance and to have careers here. Have you seen opportunities for women that you would like to comment on, or how women receive support or development? What have you seen?
I think that I think Miami Middletown especially has been really supportive of all people moving forward in their careers, from giving them time and space to pursue professional development opportunities, to going on to receive advanced degrees. I think they're really supportive of that. I was especially proud of Middletown when they had Kelly Cowan as their dean.
Why?
I'm sorry?
Why?
Why? Because that was really a step. I mean, for so long we had male leadership, and this was another opportunity to get a different perspective, to get a different way of thinking about how things should be at Middletown or at Miami generally. And so I think she brought a different perspective. I think she brought a different feel, a different vision to the campus. And so I was excited for her.
Great. The founding committee for this Middletown campus wanted a place of opportunity, but they also wanted a liberal arts education, not just a technical education. Did we fulfill that vision?
I would say yes. And I would say yes, we are fulfilling the vision of moving Miami Middletown and the regionals generally into more of a liberal education space. And the reason I say that is because of the new degrees that we have that are that have been established. They're not just in-depth degrees. I mean, they have a psychological sciences degree. And this degree, it compares to a psychology degree that you would get in Oxford. But the beauty of this one is that it's broad. So it brings together all these different departments to provide this broad liberal education opportunity for students. And not just all psychology, not just all theory. You have you have some theory, but then there's opportunity for hands-on, there's opportunity for engaging in research and things of that nature that makes it, more, that gives students more opportunity to practice those skills that I had talked about a little earlier in terms of communication, working in groups, flexibility. Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned a gentleman named Rod. Who is Rod?
Rod Mintz. He is currently the director for the Voice of America Learning Center, and he was originally at Middletown when I came to Middletown. But Rod is a fantastic musician. I remember the first time I saw him play. He played with a friend of his. We call him Juice, and he is a piano player, and Jimmy Rogers. And there was another guy that played with him, but they had dueling pianos, and it was 4 of them. And that was probably the most impressive concert that we have. And they used to do it from time to time. It was a fundraiser. And they did that for several years, and I'm not sure when it ceased to be, but that was probably the first time that I had an opportunity to experience his musical talent. And not only that, he is a people person. I mean, you know people that, people just generally like, but he knows everybody. And even if he doesn't know you, he knows somebody who knows somebody who knows you. And it's amazing to watch him, when he'll sit in the lobby of our building at VOA and people will come in and he'll just have a story, or he'll have an example, or he'll have a memory of something that will, engage this person. And it's a talent, and he is just an all-around great guy. Love Rod.
You mentioned community, and that was also one of the items the founding committee was interested in, that the campus serves the community. Mm. How does that happen?
At VOA or Middletown?
Can
just
you
generally?
On MUM
just
in particular?
I think where it's placed in terms of serving the community. So when I came, I remember they called it MUM Tech. And I couldn't figure out, okay, this is at the time we still were a community college, we still only had associate degrees. And I couldn't figure out, why would you call it MUM Tech? This is a full-fledged, thriving university. And it was because they had said that a lot of the students from Middletown considered this location just an extension of the high school. And so they would call it the 13th grade. And over time, though, the relationship that we've developed with Middletown High School has changed that whole mindset, that now this is a place where I can go from Middletown High School and pursue a higher education. And it is more than just high school. This is now an opportunity for me to grow as an individual, for me to grow as a thriving adult. And I think that we've done an awesome job in nurturing that relationship. We've done several things in terms of the location that we had downtown in Middletown. It was downtown Middletown, and it was an opportunity for us to provide artwork, and they did poetry there. I think they did chats with the dean down there. I mean, it was an opportunity for Middletown to be in another location other than on University Boulevard. We have lots of relationships with businesses in the area, with the chambers. I think that we have done an awesome job in reaching out to local schools, not just in the Middletown community, but in Warren County and those areas. Things like the Fantastic Free Fridays allow us opportunities even to reach beyond that. Because what we're doing is we're bringing students onto campus and we're providing them with an opportunity to see yes, you are being entertained, but hey, here's an opportunity for you to come on a college campus. Things like College Credit Plus is, again, another opportunity. College Credit Plus is a program that allows high school students to take college level classes. Again, reaching out to those students, establishing those relationships with the local high schools and beyond. I want to tell you a story about when Darius was here. One of the programs that he developed was Future Leaders of America. Future Leaders of America was a program that brought in not just students of color, but all students from area elementary schools and high schools, so that they could get time on campus. And we had a full week's program for them. We did things inside and outside the classroom, self-esteem building, confidence building. Again, how do you become a responsible student? And it was a program designed to support students from the 9th grade all the way until they graduated. And the impetus was that hopefully when they graduated that they would come to Middletown. And we had provided scholarships for them and things of that nature. And I believe we had, I'd say about, that I know for sure, at least 5 or 6 students from those programs, from that program, that came and became Middletown students. And one in particular student, he has graduated from Oxford and is just doing some amazing things. And so, I mean, that is a success story. Again, about how Middletown was able to kind of reach out and be a part of the community and have some students to show for it.
Are there any other stories that you'd like to get into the record that people might not know about, but they should? Again, holding students anonymous.
Things that I would want people to know about Middletown is that even though we're small, we have big hearts. One of the things that I really appreciate about this camp is that we always are trying to help someone. We've done the cancer walks. The Relay for Life has been huge over the years for Middletown. And when they used to hold it over at the Middletown High School, we would set up tents and we'd have a team of 20, 25 people from the university who were there to do the Relay for Life walk. And so we're a giving campus. One of the very first fundraisers that we had was a pancake breakfast, and it was a wacky hat pancake breakfast. And so you could imagine all of these people walking around with these crazy hats. And at the time, Dr. Governati was the director of the campus. And he and the administration are back there flipping pancakes, and everybody are walking around with these crazy hats. But that was one of my fondest memories, because I thought to myself, wow, these people really go above and beyond just their offices to give. And this had more to do with, again, I think, with establishing those relationships with the community, as well as, bringing the campus together in almost like a family kind of a situation. And the one thing, again, I really appreciate how we go out of our way, how we went out of our way to give and keep giving to, not only to establish funds, but, if there are families in need on our campus, if there are students in need, if there are people who just need an opportunity, someone somewhere on this campus was willing to kind of take the lead and say, hey, let's do this for this person. And everybody, there isn't anyone that I could think of that said no. Somehow, some way, some small way, some big way, they were able to give to that cause. So,
do you recall an organization called Civic?
Yes. Civic. Yeah, Civic actually was the organization that was responsible for a lot of the fundraisers and a lot of the volunteer opportunities that existed on campus for several years while I was here. Am I allowed to say names?
You can name employees.
Okay. Because I'm thinking specifically of Mary and she was huge with Relay for Life. She was huge with Civic. Carol Caudill, Juanita Hatton. These were all people that if you ever needed anything, they were right there at the ready to give a hand, lend a hand, and get people motivated to do what was necessary in order to make things happen.
Wonderful. Are there any other stories you'd like to include in a record for this interview?
Not that I can think of.
Do I have your permission? One. If you could talk to the planning committee members, what would you say to them about this campus?
If I could talk to the planning committee about Middletown, I would say that we're not done growing. And so just be prepared for the next 17 bachelor's degrees that we're having come. We already have 17. I wouldn't be surprised if we have 17 more. I haven't given up on the community to be even more supportive of Middletown. And so, just be ready for the boom, because I think it's coming.